Hi everyone, happy Monday. This is Melanie Shapiro. I'm here to answer your questions about immigration. I have some questions that were sent in that I would like to start with, but please feel free to drop your questions into the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. So, um, there are several questions that I want to get to. I think I'm going to start off with this question about DACA. I recently did a live where I talked about the DACA decision. So the US Supreme Court decided basically that Trump cannot end DACA in the way that he tried to end it. And so right after that decision, a lot of attorneys were filing new applications for DACA. The question that I have now is, can I apply for DACA for the first time? So the Trump administration, pretty soon after the Supreme Court decision, decided that it just wasn't going to accept new applications for DACA, even though that was against, it violated the Supreme Court order. So there is some litigation challenging this Trump policy. So theoretically, you should be able to apply for DACA for the first time, but I think that those applications are going to be rejected now. So stay tuned for more information about that. So hopefully that will get shut down pretty fast. And the next question is, what are the four types of immigration? So there's several ways that you can get immigration status. There are family petitions, so a US citizen or green card holder can apply for their spouse. A US citizen can apply for their siblings, for parents, um, and a green and both can apply for children. So those are the family-based immigration. We also do fiance petitions, which are family-based, and marriage petitions, parent petitions, sibling petitions. Also, employment-based immigration is another type of immigration. Then humanitarian immigration are cases like asylum, protection under the Violence Against Women Act, U visas for victims of violent crime, T visas for victims of trafficking, um, and then humanitarian parole. And the other type of immigration that we do is naturalization. So that's when someone's had a green card for a certain period of time and they can apply to become a citizen. The next question I have is, can I obtain a driver's license and social security card with a work permit? So yes, there are some caveats though. So you can apply for a driver's license with your work permit, but it's only going to be valid for the period of time that your work permit is valid. So for example, asylum-based work permits are good for 2 years. So a person who has one of those can get a driver's license good for 2 years. You have to show that you are eligible to remain in the United States for a period of time in order to be eligible to apply for a driver's license. And when we do the work permit requests, in that application, you're able to ask for a social security card at the same time. So before, people would have to go to the social security office with their work permit after they received it and go through the process there. But now it's more streamlined, and when someone applies for a work permit, they can mark off on the application that they also want the social security card, and then they receive both the work permit and the social security in the mail without having to go to the Social Security Administration, which nobody wants to do anyway because it takes forever. Um, the only thing with the driver's license for someone who isn't a permanent resident is that they're not going to be able to get the real ID driver's license with it. So it'll be valid for driving purposes, but not for traveling purposes. So people are going to have to use both their driver's license and their passport to travel. Um, the next one is it safe to travel with a pending case if you have a travel document? So it's not safe to travel if you have a pending case and you do not have a travel document. I can start off with that. And it really depends on the situation. If there are any other problems or red flags with a case, I don't recommend traveling even if you do have a travel document, because even if you have something called advance parole, which means that they're supposed to, they're like approving you to come back in advance, it isn't a guarantee because every time that you go to the border, there's going to be another determination of whether they're going to allow you into the US. So if you don't have to travel, don't travel, especially under this administration. And certain red flags that come up is if anyone has ever been arrested, if they're currently in removal proceedings. So it really is a case by case situation. And okay, hi Duarte. My he says my husband is out of the country. I filed for him to come to the USA. He went to the interview. He answered some questions wrong. I have to reapply. Can I make an appointment with you? Yes, absolutely. Leave your phone number or send me your phone number in a message, and I will have my team reach out to you. Okay. The next question is, can I be deported while my case is pending? Yeah, it really just kind of depends what your case is. There are certain types of cases that stop unlawful presence, but sometimes you can still be deported if you have a certain type of case pending. For example, if you just have a marriage petition pending, but you don't also have a request for um, adjustment of status, or you need a waiver, or you have something more temporary like a U visa pending. Um, so it really kind of just depends on the situation. So you should give me a call in case you're worried that you might get deported while your case is pending. Um, how long does the immigration process take? So this really depends. It's different for everyone and different for every kind of case. So I can just give you some ballparks. So for example, doing a fiance petition or marriage petition and doing it through consular processing, meaning that your spouse or fiance is going to have their interview at the US Embassy in their country. That's more or less taking like 11 to 14 months for them to be able to come over here. The I-130 is taking about 5 to 7 months. I know that the Boston USCIS field office is prioritizing citizenship cases, so those are going a bit faster. Asylum can take years, and it also depends if you're in court or if you're not in court. So there's on the USCIS website, it has current processing times. So you can go on that website and select the form that you have that is pending and see what the current processing time is. Um, and then the next question that I have is, what are the income requirements for a marriage petition? So for a marriage petition, the petitioner has to fill out, it's called an I-864 affidavit of support. And depending on the household size, there are different figures that apply. But basically, you have to show that you are obtaining 125% or more than the federal poverty guidelines. So sometimes the petitioner might not have enough money in their tax return to show that they can be the primary sponsor. So this person might need a joint sponsor, or even the immigrant that they're applying for can use their income to supplement the figure there for the household income. So there are ways to get around that. And this is kind of related. The next question is, what is the public charge rule? So in, I believe, March, the new public charge rule took effect, and basically, instead of just using the affidavit of support form that we were using for all these years, the Trump administration created a new 18-page form and a 7-factor test to see whether or not an immigrant is going to be a public charge, or basically it's going to rely on the government for financial support and benefits. So this is also tied up in litigation. There are some injunctions gone through stopping the Trump administration from requiring this while it's determined whether or not this is valid. So right now, we technically don't have to file the public charge forms because that case is pending, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We're probably going to have to continue using them. So it's basically a ton more work for everyone. And let's see, I guess I could tell you a little bit about the factors. So it's basically looking at age, health, financial situation, your employment history, education, potential for employment, savings, and they're also looking at whether someone has made efforts to learn English. So those are basically the factors. And the next question is, if I file an I-130, can I work? So just filing the I-130, the family petition alone, does not make you eligible to get a work permit. But if you file the I-130 with the green card application, you can also file for the work permit at the same time, and you can work. And the processing for the work permits is about 3 to 5 months. So you can factor that into your decision about whether you are able to work or not. And then the next question that we have is, if I have a pending case in the court or at USCIS, do immigration changes affect me? Yes. So again, it really depends on what the change is and what type of case you have. But for example, for people who have pending asylum cases, there's a rule that's going into effect on August 25th that says that instead of normally having to wait 150 days to apply for a work permit, you're going to have to wait 365 days to apply for the work permit. So even though your case for asylum is already pending, this work permit change is going to affect you. But then for other types of cases, it is retroactive or it's not retroactive, so it's very specific to the change. So just stay tuned to our Facebook Lives and our posts and blogs, because we'll always provide the latest information on any changes and how they might impact cases. The next question is, if my asylum case is pending, how can I bring family members? What if they're in danger? So with an asylum case, you are able to include your spouse or children who are presently in the United States on the original application. And if your family members are in danger, you can try and put your case on the short list to expedite your case so that you have a decision quicker. And this is really important because once your asylum case is granted, then you are able to file the I-730, which is follow to join benefits for your family members, which means essentially you file an application and it gets sent to the U.S. Embassy in your home country, and your family members will be processed and they enter the United States as asylees. So that's how that would work. And also, if there are specific hardships, medical conditions, if your family is in danger and you have proof of that, then once you file the I-730, we can work with the State Department to try and speed up the processing. We have had success with that in the past, that we had an asylum seeker whose case was granted, whose children were in Uganda and had some pretty serious medical conditions, and we were able to work with our congressional liaisons and the State Department to try and speed up her case and get her children here safely. So it is definitely possible. And the next question is, can ICE arrest me without a warrant? They should not arrest you without a warrant, but they might try to do that. So it's really important that you know your rights about what happens if ICE stops you, and if you're in your house, for example, and ICE knocks on your door. If they have a warrant, you can ask them to slip it under the door and you can look at it. They are only authorized to arrest you if they have a warrant that is signed by a judge. If it's signed by an immigration officer, it's not authentic, and it's not sufficient to arrest you. So you can say, come back when you have a warrant signed by a judge. And I know that that's scary in the moment, and easier said than done. But just so you know, you don't have to open the door unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. So another announcement that I have is that our office is going to be providing a service to those who want to subscribe. It's called Law Pilot Guardian, and it's an app on your phone, and it has some terrific features that it has know your rights information in English and Spanish, and you can also play that information if you do get arrested or detained. And if there is an emergency, like you are stopped by ICE, you can click a panic button on the phone. It will automatically record the conversation, and it will send it back to my office with a GPS location of where you are. And you can also have on your app emergency contacts. So so you can have a plan in place in case you do get arrested, so that we can notify your emergency contacts and let them know what's going on. So if you are interested in signing up for that service, give our office a call and we can set you up. The next question is, has COVID changed any of ICE's procedures or practices? Yeah, so normally the ICE check-ins are in person in Burlington, but now they have all of the ICE check-ins over the phone. So nobody is going in right now. So that's one way that it's changed. ICE, unfortunately, is still doing arrests like they were before, so that hasn't changed. There's some litigation about the safety of immigrant detainees in ICE jails. So there's been a little bit of progress there, but still very disheartening. So we just have to kind of wait and see how things go and how the courts decide these issues. And the last question that I have is, how are immigration courts and USCIS handling the case backlog? So right now the courts are a mess. For example, I went to the court for a trial that we wanted to get expedited because my client has a great case and has been really eager to get this off his shoulders because it's very stressful waiting to go through this process. And this is an asylum seeker. And we get to the court. I have 3 witnesses. One of them has diabetes, so she's high risk. And I have the other 2 ready to testify. I brought an intern with me to watch the trial because he hasn't been able to see a trial all summer because of COVID. And we go into the court, and they didn't have the file. The court did not have the file. So there's a lot of disorganization, totally backlogged, totally crazy at the court. There's a recent article that came out talking about how the court is in such a disarray, was a term that was used, and that's perfect for what is going on right now at the court. So we're just going day by day with the court proceedings. I also went out to the Worcester Probate and Family Court for a trial. We received a summons telling us to come. We went to the court. There was no judge, and nobody called us. So the situation with the courts is pretty terrible and frustrating right now, but we're getting as much information as we can and trying to stay on top of things and hoping that things improve. USCIS has been pretty backlogged as well, and there have been a lot of kind of ridiculous rejections of applications and delays and requests for evidence. So part of the problem is that the USCIS employees, most of them are working from home, and the cases are getting scanned into them. So in scanning the cases in, some pages get missing, and we're receiving rejections for cases, asking for requests for evidence for things that we've already provided. So This is pretty similar across the board from what I hear from my colleagues. So I know everyone's trying their best and the situation is difficult, but it is very frustrating. Um, so if nobody has any more questions, then I think that that's it for right now. Thank you for the questions. Feel free to send me a message if you have any other questions. I'll be back on Facebook Live on Wednesday in Espanol. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.